first session after lunch, so nobody's tired, right? This is the peak time for people most energized, most together. So Jonathan and I are going to be talking about migration and AI migrations, and just first a little bit about Civic Actions. Civic Actions has been around for just over 2 decades. I don't have the T-shirt, but Christian does. So we've got a T-shirt that highlights that. We've also been quite involved in looking at AI with search and trying to incorporate Vertex search, Vertex AI search into Drupal. We've got a module on that as well. We're involved in more than just code. So we have an open practices area that's talking about things from procurement to looking at our Python community and trying to go off and build an open a practice area around Python and Civic Actions as well. So I'm Mike Gifford. I'm a Drupal core accessibility maintainer. I'm also a W3C invited expert on accessibility. And Jonathan is Jonathan, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, well, thank you. I am Jonathan. I'm an associate director of Drupal, one of many at Civic Actions, and also the Python practice area lead. Like you said, it's a new thing we're getting into.
Yes, excellent. So we're going to be introducing the AI content migration module. So I want to just sort of put you back into a bit of an imaginary state. Like, how many people here have been involved in a site migration at some point? And how many people thought that was a good experience? Okay, I didn't think so, or thought so. So yeah, just put yourself back in that miserable place. I'm sorry. You're there. You've been hired to go off and do this work, or you've started this work, and you've engaged a team to implement this. The UX work is done. The content types have been created. You've got site builders who are like eager and ready to go off and to create views and to manage that content to go off and present it as you have envisioned and dreamed for your client. You've got this vision of what's possible based on what they are now and what you've sold to the client, and that you're committed to delivering. The modules are being configured. You're all set, and then you have to deal with the old site. And the content model just doesn't line up, right? You've got the new site that has stuff organized slightly differently. The page structure is inconsistent. I mean, of course, you did a site review at the beginning, but you didn't notice that there's these 2 pages way down at the bottom that have a little bit of Dreamweaver fragments in it, and you didn't see that there's actually some JavaScript that's running some custom third-party tools over in this other piece over here. You didn't see a lot of it, and then there's, for that matter, just the HTML cruft. Which is cruft is a word we need to be a technical term we need to go off and use more often, but there's a lot of that, and of course, like, trying to go off and deal with this all in an agile fashion is really difficult, and so often, because migration is done at the end of a project, you're left basically saying, okay, we have a lot of challenges that are going to need to be fixed by content authors. Content authors are going to need to manually go in and page by page evaluate and review and update the code. And it's not going to be pretty like we've envisioned from the CCC module that Christian was talking about before lunch. It's not going to be all consistent and organized. It's going to be really ugly. And when you try and implement this within your new framework, it's going to make your new framework look ugly because all of that cruft is going to be brought in there with it. It's an extract and dump theory where you take all of the bundle of HTML tags in your little Ziploc bag and you throw it in there. But with our, and it's like, yeah, you take, traditionally what you've done in a migration is to try and take all the pieces that you can't organize structurally and you just put it into the body field, and then you say, well, we'll deal with that later. And but that increases the cost, it increases the time, it means that you're sort of limited in terms of how much flexibility you have. You're not able to use all of the functionality that you've built into the blocks and your views, and you've got limited searchability again because it's all stuffed into a body field based on how the migration has had to go because you didn't have the time to do it properly. And there's great tools like migration that has made migration easier, but it's still not easy. It's still something that takes a lot of effort and has left us with not a lot of reusable content. So as an example, just as terms of content migration approaches, or not approaches, examples of different types of migrations. The easy ones are the one like here on your left with with the Civic Actions accessibility site. So this has like simple title, simple author, simple date field. There's an image. It's all fairly straightforward, and you can scroll down and this is all done with Markdown, and it's all quite organized. Versus if you wanted to migrate something like the Open Library that has so many other fields, so many other dynamic pieces of content that are associated with that, it's much more challenging to try and migrate something like this that has these dynamic elements. And this is so often what we're left with trying to migrate. We're not being asked to migrate simple sites all that often. And now the solution.
Here I come, riding on my white horse to the rescue. All right. So we're not really talking about. We're talking about Civic Actions mostly deals with government sites with thousands and thousands of pages, where over time they've gathered cruft, and we're talking about very realistic situations here, where things are never perfect, basically, which is, in my experience, is 100% of all migrations. Some worse than others. But here we go. Enter AI semantic migration. That's what our module, I think it's just called AI migration. There's a lot of modules around the same name, but we're AI _migration. It's there for use cases sort of like Mike discussed. Maybe you don't have a structured data dump. Maybe someone lost the password to your old Java site, and it hasn't been updated in 10 years. You don't have a CSV, or maybe the dump or the CSV you have is not well structured. We've seen that case, definitely. Maybe your content model has changed drastically, and it's not easy to map from one to the other. For instance, you may end up having to parse HTML into different fields, which, from experience, can be very difficult and annoying, a lot of regex. Or you just, like Mike said, you end up just dumping it all into a body field. That is a true story. Unfortunately, from last year, where a client just wanted to dump everything in the body field from their old Java site. And maybe your source pages are inconsistent. They may look the same on the outside. They may visually look the same, but you look under the hood and like heading tags, like header tags don't match up, or things aren't really, maybe they have just created things straight into a body field or with Dreamweaver, and it's not actually consistent with each other. How are we going to migrate something like that where it's inconsistency over thousands of pages? You could spend thousands of hours doing that, or you could use semantic migration. So this is the module I was referring to, the AI migration module. There's several of us up there. The thing that we're really looking for with this module is flexibility. So, I just kind of gave you like the worst cases, right? Like you don't have good data, you don't have well-structured data, you have unstructured data. It's also great for things where you do have a little more structure too. It just does it faster. You don't have as much dev time doing regex. The nice thing about using, we use the Migrate API, which, as we know, all knows an amazing tool. I think that's sort of key because it's already got a lot built into it that we can use. Repeatable through rollbacks. I mean, nothing ever goes right the first time. You just roll it back and you try again, especially with AI. Maybe you just don't grab a field you want. You just roll it back and you try it again. It's relatively simple, right? And then you have a whole ecosystem of plugins such as for post-processing to transform your content or do whatever you want to with it. So our vision in the big bright red box, so from unstructured content, create a single entity or even multiple networks of related well-structured data. Because we're not just talking about taking a blog post or something relatively simple, but most sites have content that's very intertwined with relationships to each other. You have nodes that have media, which of course the media also sits on a file. You've got paragraphs, you've got taxonomy, and these things repeat over multiple pages. So you really can't just go on a page-by-page basis, right? You have to preserve those connections to each other on a complex site. So how does our module work? Well, we start with HTML. We're using the Drupal Migrate API in this instance with the Migrate Plus module so that we have a data fetcher, which we use the HTTP data fetcher, right? We're bringing in URLs or HTML into our service, the AI Migrator service, which from there, and this is the key thing, we create a schema for the entity type or the bundle, right? Really both. We create a schema in JSON schema format. This is key because AI is, as been said before today, AI likes structure, AI likes schema, right? And we add that to a prompt that you can set yourself or use the default, and the HTML, just a blob of HTML, which you can actually pick and choose which parts of the HTML you send. You send it to the cloud, LLM, and it sends back structured data. It's amazing. Like the first time I saw this happen, where I sent a schema and like HTML, and it just came back formatted, I was like, that was like the deciding moment, the aha moment for AI for me. I was like, oh, it just knew where to put it. Like that's crazy, right? Like we've all seen things like that, but it's great because you can send it something. The JSON schema is like it's something that comes basically out of the box, right? And then it references the whole schema and it brings back structured data. And with that, you can save well-structured content. And just a point there, I've heard the term well-structured content a lot today, like structured content, structured data, something like that, for good reason, because Drupal, as we said, is really good with structured data. It structures the data well, right? And that is absolutely, I think it's absolutely important that we get, if you're bringing in, a blob of HTML, that you retain or you make that structure, right? So that you can use it later. We're talking about flexible sources too. I actually talked to Rob last night about document loader, which might be something we use in the future. Right now, we can go with HTML. We can go to Drupal Migrate API, and then we send from the Migrate API to our Migrator service. Now, here's the cool thing, is you don't have to use the Migrate API. We have a Migrate Plus plugin called AI, basically, right? That's a data parser. But you don't have to use that because the service is a service by itself. You can inject that anywhere, and you can use it however you want to, right? Migrate API is a great solution, but there's other ways that you can do this too, and this service does all this for you. In the future, we're talking about PDFs, loading PDFs, cocktail napkins, which is my favorite way to design sites. Basically, the idea is to be, again, extremely flexible on our source and also the type of migration. All right, and spend a minute talking about migration as content creation. Just kind of had this aha moment this week. So pulling in data, migrating data is creating content, especially in this instance, right? Like content is not just, or content creation is not just typing on your keyboard, having an editor enter something, right? More content is created via migrations worldwide, I'm sure, than composed by authors, right? Because you're just migrating tons and tons of content. So this is how people often are creating content on their sites, right? They're not inputting it manually. And the nice thing with this is AI can grab different pieces of the pages you're looking at, right? And compose something new out of it. Maybe you want this part of the page, this part of the page, this file, this paragraph, right? And it can compose a completely new structure out of it. And also, as we all know, filter prompting, AI can also transform it on the way, or you can process it with a process plugin. Benefits, cost, time, savings. So obviously, if you're not spending so much time writing regex and different things to parse out your HTML, or just dumping everything into your body field, you're going to save a lot of time overall. Since your stuff is already well structured, you have well structured content, there's going to be a lot less tech debt, and your backlog is going to be happy, right? Because you know in a week that if you put everything in a couple of fields, in a week your client's going to be like, oh yeah, can we filter by that field in search? You're like, well, we can't because it's not a field, right? It's stuck in another field, and you're going to have to do that, right? It's going to save time and cost, not having to do that because it's already well structured. There's not as much tech debt just buried in your site, and you can do that. Like you can take your fields, you can augment your SEO or your AEO or GEO in this case, and filter by your terms in search and things like that. Okay, so where we are now. So we're at, as it says, 1.0.0.alpha2. That answers that question? No. We've been working on this for several months. I think our CTO, Owen, dreamed it up at some point last year. I've been leading the development on it. So it's been, we have client work too, but continuously going for several months now. We're currently able to migrate nodes in Drupal 10 and 11. We have taxonomy support, so it can pull in terms with your nodes. We completely integrate Drupal AI modules and use their API, of course. You can choose your LLM provider or model outside of, actually in your migration YAML, so it gives you a little more control. You can change your model per migration, which is kind of nice. We have a prompt management plugin system, so you can use the default prompt that we have, or you can augment it in your migration YAML. I should stop and say, like, this is sort of we think about who does migrations. It's mostly developers going into YAML and doing these things, going to the command line. I mean, even the migrations run over command line. So it is like migrator centered, right? Where we're giving you options in your YAML, your migration YAML to do things, and refine your prompts and things like that. That's what it's aimed at. We're caching responses, so you don't waste a ton of tokens if you keep rolling back and migrating and rolling back, right? And we have a couple example migrations included as submodules. So now it's time for a demo.
Is everyone ready?
Everyone,
Excellent.
So there should be 3D glasses underneath your chair. Go ahead. And popcorn. All right. Let's see here. So I mentioned there are a couple example migrations here. Okay. Let's see. Let's back up. Okay. So I'm going to do a live demo. Ooh. Thank you. Took no prompting. All right, so Mike showed off the beautiful Civic Actions accessibility site. This was our first step to saying, okay, can we migrate something relatively simple like a blog post? Like you said, we've got a title. Now, this kind of all looks like one body field a bit. It could be one body field, but we're dividing out byline. There's actually 2 bylines that makes it extra complicated, right? Post date. And then there's this thing down here, this little publication. This is part of the body. Oh no. Our friend, the developer Daniel, like there wasn't a way to do this basically, except making it part of the body in the system we're using. But we want this to be a separate field, right? So that's what we're looking at migrating right now. All right. So within Drupal, all right, we've got no content. There's nothing up our sleeves, right? All right. This is my local. All right. But we do have some content types that were configured that enable with our module. So we've got a complex content migration and a simple content migration. We're going to do the simple today, just to keep things moving here. No. Okay. But you can look just real quick. We've got a few fields here, and then the trick is we can also augment our schema or our prompt or our schema by actually adding things to the help text here. So if you actually look at the schema and schema.json or schema.json, you can see that we're actually pulling in descriptions here. It's kind of a freebie that you get working with this module. So, all right. So you saw that. Okay. So I'm going to go to my terminal here. Now, this isn't exactly a live demo. It's a live demo of something I did earlier today. So I don't know what AI is going to do. I don't know if Wi-Fi connections, so I cached the results. But so it's not a real time. But as you can see, this is something you would normally do if you migrate. It's ddev drush migrate :import, and this is my migration name, simple content migration. Run that. All right. So it would take more time if it was running live.
But it worked.
Hey, it worked. Look at that. It's amazing. All right, so we go back here, and we can see, we're going to refresh our content here. We do have content now, and we can see that it busted things out by our fields. It took just the blob of HTML, okay? It brought back this field, which you said was embedded in the body. And then if you really want to see our logs, just to say, we prove it was done, right? Our prompting here sends the HTML, all this HTML blob here, and then it gets back the response, and we parse that out. Okay. So, let's go as fast as I can. All right. What are we working on now? Structured responses. There's not a lot of alignment between like Gemini and OpenAPI does structured responses right now, so we're working on that. We're working on more entity relationships like media files. You don't have to use the migrate API. We're working on just like doing a single form, so you can like do a really quick demo of a migration. That takes less time than this. And we'd love to be added to the AI initiative. We think we have something really valuable to offer, a flexible way to migrate content with AI. Ooh, that's it. Okay, great.
So who wants the first question? Over here.
So you just showed us how that would work on individual pieces of content. You must be considering, if there's like a large amount of unstructured content, tens of thousands of pieces of content, there must be some way to look at like a representative sample and create effectively like a standard which can then get applied without having to go out and hit the model for every individual piece of content. Or am I don't know, is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, there is some pre-work done here, like the UX work, basically. So you have audited, say, the source, right? And we even have an AI tool for that, but it's in Python, so we can't talk about it here. So there is like some optimization done to like say like, okay, well, what do we want here, right? And you can find the. I think I'm answering your question, but you could find the patterns, but hopefully you've done the work with the content already, and then you can use the module to fit that into your data. Does that answer your question?
I think it does.
And I think Iris's Python tool is up on our GitHub page as well. So
it's open source.
GitHub.com/civicactions, you should be able to find that there.
And we can totally talk about Python.
Is there time for another question?
Yes. Are we then, like, I'm thinking of a traditional Drupal migrate module implementation, are we then mapping the JSON response from the model to the Drupal fields, or is that being generated also, is that mapping also being generated by?
Oh, it was such a hard problem. So the JSON we're getting back, that's a question like how much do we parse that out, right? At first we started just parsing that into an entity we could save, but right now we decided to just use process plugins to sort of like dig through that. It's going to be a lot easier. We're going to save. We won't have to worry about generating taxonomy. Like the process plugins are going to do most of the work for us. So, yeah. Yes.
More questions? Jacob? The AI, this is getting very developer reading, but
Good.
the AI is in the source plugin. Like basically you're saying, here's my source, I want you to go out to this HTML page, and then there's that prepare row, there's like methods prepare row where you're going to send it out to the AI and say, prepare this and bring it back. Is that kind of the workflow and how you're working migrating?
Yeah, it is it is a source plugin. It uses Migrate Plus's. It's a data parser plugin, so which is in the source, right? So we use the data fetcher to get the HTML and the data parser to actually send it to our service and get back the JSON, and then you run that through the process and all that.
It's a leading question because I was asking because that gives you this option. You have all these events in the migration system to even process it before it goes up to the LLM. You could use a cheaper LLM to strip out all the tags. You could even strip out all the classes and reduce the token.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're actually using a Symfony component right now. It's like an HTML sanitizer for that. And I forgot to show you, I was going to show the YAML. I'm sorry. But you can actually configure that in the YAML. And we're also talking about going to the document loader instead of that, so to help us prepare the content. So yeah, you get a lot more hallucinations if you send it your whole head tag, for instance, right? So you want to strip it down to exactly what you want, which the Symfony component does pretty well.
And this is also a beautiful time to go off and use CCC to go off and to clean up the text you're importing into your new
plug.
This is the ideal space.
Yeah.
Thank you for this.
Thank you.